welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports. And the Proteas have just announced their 17-man squad for their two-test tour to New Zealand in February, which sees the recall of Simon Harmer, who is back in the squad for the first time since 2015. Obviously, a lot of Colback players are back within the system. We've already seen Dwayne Oliver and Wayne Parnell back playing for the Proteas, and now Simon Harmer is the latest of the ex-Colback players to be included in the squad, which has caused quite a little bit of controversy. But I think we're going to talk about that. I think that a lot of the criticism and the thinking regarding some of the selections is quite short-sighted, and I think that we need to start being a bit more open-minded if you want to be a good cricket side about the players that we are willing to select. But we're going to talk about that a little bit when we go through the squad. Personally, I think this is one of the most exciting squads in terms of having very little issue with anyone being picked that we've seen in a long time. You know, I think it's a side that's being picked on form. It's a side that has a mixture of youth and experience. It's a side that has a lot of exciting names. Obviously, there's always going to be a couple of players who are unlucky to miss out because you can't include everyone. But I think generally, they've got the squad pretty much bang on. But before we look at the squad, please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Now, some big news is that no Anurag Nokia is still not recovered from injury, which is a huge loss for the Proteas, which means we're going to need to see another seamer step up again. We saw Marco Jansen was the second highest wicket taker during the India series, and I'm sure that he now will sort of be walking into that side. The question comes in, do you go an all-rounder? Do you go a spinner? Do you go, where do we sit in terms of how we fill that sort of Anurag Nokia spot? And whether we can afford to go one seamer down, we can afford an extra batsman. So sort of the makeup of the actual 11 is still going to be quite contentious. But in terms of the squad, this is who have been selected. So Dino obviously captain the side. Temba Bavuma is the vice captain. Then Sol Ovia is contained the squad as the other opening option. Marco Jansen is kept in the squad. Simon Harmer, Kesha Maraj, Ed Markham, Vian Mulder, Lungi Ngidi, Dwayne Oliver, Keegan Peterson, Chris Rabada, Ryan Rickleton. The other call-up besides Simon Harmer is Lucas Apamla, who's into the squad on the back of, first of all, some very impressive form in the 4-day series. I think he's been very good, but more importantly, probably for them, similar to Marco Jansen, he was outstanding in that India A tour. He actually took more wickets than Marco Jansen. Actually, was probably the better bowler during that series. But Marco Jansen, I think, gets in there in terms of being something a bit different with his height and being a left armour. Lucas Apamla had a very good test debut when he took on Sri Lanka. Very much ready for this level. And then you've got Glenn Stearman, Rassi van der Dussen, and Calvin Rain. So, players who I think are unlucky not to be there. A lot of talk about David Bellingham, who scored a double ton the other day. And I think that David Bellingham is destined to play for the Proteas. He was in the county circuit for a number of years and piled on the runs. Was one of the leading run scorers. I think he averaged, at one stage, was averaging almost 100 in county cricket. He's an incredibly gifted cricketer. And we're finally starting to see it now. In this last round of the 4-day series, we started to see that on Stafford Shaw. I think the biggest problem I think it counts against him is it took him a while in the first couple of games back here to start scoring those runs. I think he had a couple of low scores and didn't manage to really hit the ground running domestically from the start of the season. Which is why, I think something like Ryan Rickleton is probably selected ahead of him, because that would be the only person you could really drop out of the squad if you wanted to then take David Bellingham, or else you'd be looking at dropping an all-rounder or a bowler for him, But, if you're looking at the side there, the big sort of question marks are around Aidan Markham, whether you're still going to back him at the top of the order. I think it's one of those things where we all know that Aidan Markham is good enough test cricket. He's scored test match centuries against Australia, which is currently the number one side in the world. I'm not saying that they were back then, but it's a very similar lineup, and he's had some terrific games at the moment as a Proteas test batsman, test opener. The problem is sort of stuck in a rut. Now, a lot of conversations now, do you drop him down the order? Do you drop him completely? Why give him special treatment, drop him down the order? And the answer is, I think, you look at the squad, without Quinton de Kock, Aidan Markham is the most talented batsman in that lineup. Right now, he's the most talented batsman in the lineup we've got. Dean Elgar is our best batsman, in terms of the most consistent. Temba Bavuma is looking in phenomenal form. But gifted-wise, Aidan Markham is the most gifted batsman in that lineup. The question is, how can we get him to become the best batsman in the team? How can we get him back to where he was when he started his career, where he was just taking apart any bowling attack? So that's sort of a big question. Now, the other question is, I'd like to see Vian Mulder kept in the side. I think we need an all-rounder, and I don't think Marco Jansen's an all-rounder. We can't look at someone after a couple of test matches. Most people have never even watched him play. He's very early on in his career. He played a decent innings against India A, where he scored that 72. He looks like he can bat, yes, but he's only batted at first class level once at number 7. Apart from that, he's been an 8 or 9 or 10, and he hasn't really scored that many runs in first class cricket. So to sit there and try and suggest that he was an all-rounder is very far-fetched, unfortunately. So I still think that there's room for an all-rounder, and that's where Vian Mulder possibly comes in. Or else you go with Simon Harmer as two spinners. I don't see us dropping Keshav Maharaj. Yes, he didn't do particularly well in the last Test series, but it's in South Africa where spinners can offer a lot. Whereas, whenever you've been in positions where spinners have played an important part, Keshav Maharaj has statistically been probably the best spinner in South Africa's history. In terms of someone who can actually turn the ball a bit, can get some pushes off the pitch. He's a phenomenal player. So it is those two competing for each other, unless you were to do the unthinkable that decide to go with two spinners, which is very unlikely. But Simon Harmer obviously does offer quite a lot with the bat. So I think it's a very good squad. I think Rasiphan Aduson's under a lot of pressure. A lot of people calling for him and saying his technique isn't suited for Test cricket. A lot of people now have concerns about Kyle Verreynne with his technique. I don't like technique merchants. I don't like it. I think there are far too many people who, as soon as you don't see the best on drive and the most secure technique, decide that they can't have a career in Test cricket, which, when you've watched how Dean Alger has managed to make his technique work, he's got a, let's be honest, a not particularly orthodox technique, not a phenomenal technique, but he knows how to score runs. He's found a way to tough it out. He's got that mental strength, which, he's made it work. So there are lots of batsmen in and around the world who don't have the most orthodox technique. Steve Smith does not have an orthodox technique, and he scores a stupid amount of runs. So I don't like the whole idea that everybody's like, Rasiphan Aduson's technique doesn't suit Test cricket. It's about whether you can score the runs. It's about scoring runs. Right now, Hayden Market's probably got the best technique in the squad. Scored the fewest runs in the Test series after besides Kyle Verreynne. I thought Rasiphan Aduson played two incredibly important knocks, which effectively won us 2 games. I think the knock in the Wanderers and that knock in Newlands showed you that he still is Test match quality. He's scored 50 against every single opponent that he's had, basically. India was the first series where he really failed in inverted commas in terms of not averaging more than like 30 or 35, and not that's particularly good. I think for number 4 batsman, but he scored 50 in Pakistan. I think he scored about 240s in Pakistan as well. He scored a 90 against England in his first Test series. He's always scored runs in Test series. So I think to suddenly bin him after one series would be really short-sighted. The only thinking, though, would be to potentially drop him and either move Tim Vuma up to 4 or move Aiden Markham down to 4 and have Saul Irvia start at the top of the order. So those are sort of the questions. Ryan Rippleton is somebody who's been making a stupid amount of runs. He currently averages 98 in domestic cricket, having scored 2 tons early this season. So there's quite a lot of debate as to how this team will form up. Now, the biggest debate of all starts on 17th of February. Will Mark Boucher be at the helm? Will he be around? Because obviously he has a disciplinary waiting for him. So lots that could potentially change in terms of the way the PROTEAS want to set up regarding coaches and stuff like that. But let me know what you think of the squad down in the comments below. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. As always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.